Hey everyone, you're looking at Nowhere Bird's Garage on World of Tanks Xbox 360 edition. There was recently a topic in the forums again of how it isn't helpful to tell people that they suck when they're doing the wrong thing, and don't scream at them and call them worthless scrubs or worse. And people had put out suggestions. Oh, why aren't you working to improve it instead of not improve it? And so I thought about what I could do, and I thought I might put out a little video explaining some of the things that have been brought up in the thread that the tutorial didn't really talk about too much. So we're going to head into the training mission and see if we can clear up a couple things. There's several good YouTubers out there who explain some of this stuff. You got a guy who goes under the handle The Rising Sun. Rising, Riising. There's also a couple other people out there who put out some things on regular World of Tanks. There's a guy named the Mighty Jingles, another who goes by the name of Quickie Baby, and others that you can look up on YouTube. They all kind of friend each other up too. But they talk about a lot of the tactics you can use and employ, how some of the mechanics of the game work. They have some pretty good instructional videos up, and also some kind of funny, humorous side of things in World of Tanks at times. Alright, so we're getting ready to load into the training area.
And your crew through some training exercises.
And you learn some basic things,
so don't get too comfy.
like how to point your gun at stuff. Point at the truck.
Good. Now aim.
Good job, Humble Howard.
Alright, move up to the mark.
And there we go, and we point it again. So we kind of learned that our turret moves independently of our tank, hopefully. So you drive up to the next point, crashing through a barricade.
Now move up to the next location. Remember,
you're surrounded by a number of objects.
You drive through them.
Now the tutorial just wants us to know that we can crash through some things, and they won't impede us. Stacks of ammo. Fences aren't going to stop us. Most small vehicles won't stop us. Things that do stop you, solid concrete buildings, those will stop you most of the time. So you got to kind of watch out for that. Tents you can flatten. Towers you can flatten. We can flatten the guard shack. We can flatten the guard shack. And we flatten the truck. We can flatten the truck. Bigger vehicles. So that's kind of some of what you should pick up with that, and that's pretty obvious. Nobody's getting mystified by this stuff.
Looks like you and your crew can handle the basics. Let's see if you can handle some more advanced actions. Get your tank to the firing position marked on your mini-map in the bottom right of the screen. You will have to cross a swamp to get there.
So now we kind of got to drive a long way across to a beach or something over on the far side of this water. You can hold the thumbstick forward, that's one way to do it, or you can engage in autopilot, kind of a cruise control. You just drive forward automatically without having to press your thumbstick forward. You can just turn left and right. You can find this on a number of the controller options. I use controller option B and use the up and down on my directional pad to say if I want to go on forward, cruise control, or reverse cruise control. Alright, so here we come up and spot an enemy tank. And if it looks purple to you, that's because it's in colorblind mode. That's an option that you can pick in the video side of things. So we're facing this tank. And so where do we want to shoot it? Kind of want to focus on what are called weak spots of a tank. Although this tank is has such low armor compared to our gun caliber that we can usually puncture it in every place that appears purple. Things that you can shoot for: hatches on top of tanks. Those are generally weak points. Any kind of machine gun port can usually be a weak spot. Any kind of place where the driver or the gunner has to peek out to spot other tanks. Those are weak points. And some are more prominent on other tanks of certain lines than others. The Germans have a notoriously weak lower glacis plate, is what it's called. It's just the lower plate that kind of welds the bottom and the top together. They have weak joints at their tires that they can be penetrated on. And their sides wind up being pretty flat too. But it's kind of important to note that, this isn't a guaranteed penetration. If we came at it from sort of an angle, here I zoom in on the tank, you can easily bounce shots or make no damaging shots. Sometimes shots into tracks won't damage a tank. This tank is such a thinly armored tank that we might be able to damage it whatever we do. Here's a shot into the tracks. That did a lot of damage. Might have been deflected into the body, or just might have a really weak patch of armor there. Sometimes if you shoot off the back of things, you can actually deflect your shots off a tank. So we'll try to deflect a shot here if the angle is thin enough. No, it's a pretty weak tank.
Head to the next firing position. It's marked
All right.
on your mini map in the bottom right.
So as you see, I could zoom to a number of levels. There's a third person outside the tank mode. There's the short range weapon mode, where you can see things at short range, and then there's a zoom mode, or some might call it the second zoom. I don't know. However you want to refer to it. It zooms you in really close. Mine's controlled by my right thumbstick. That's part of controller setup B. And then other controller setups, it's in different places. I kind of like it that way. I like it my cruise control set up the way it is, and my zoom levels the way they are. So here we're facing a Tiger II tank. And this tank is quite a bit more powerful than ours, much more heavily armored than that last one for sure. We can try some shots, like on the really angled plates, and they'll just ricochet off into the distance. Try another one here. You can see the shot just ricocheting off the top away from it. Even the lower glacis plate can deflect shots just because it's so well angled. There's a shot. Just left a mark and dove off into the sand. There are sometimes still ports or weak spots on these tanks where you can debilitate them. Sometimes if you shoot a Tiger here, you can debilitate the viewport for the gunners and the drivers. That's a spot. If you have a more powerful gun, you have a higher chance of debilitating these things. This used to be a spot. You can make the gun shoot there. Some other spots are the turret. These turrets. This one's pretty well armored though. Probably not going to do too much damage to it. So how do we damage such a tank? How do we find a weak spot on this tank? We're generally going to have to go around to the sides and back, which are much weaker, and the video directs you there.
Good. Now take out that tank.
There are still better places to shoot than others. Shooting in the rear and front axles can just detract a tank like that shot, or it can do damage if it winds up reflecting into the body. The body is vulnerable in between the tracks if you can shoot those. Generally flat places like engine decks and places where they might store ammo inside are very weak. Sometimes turrets are weak, sometimes they're not. The Tiger II was supposed to have a pretty bouncy rear of the turret where you might expect it to be weak. I think this will probably damage it though, just because it's a tutorial tank. Generally that can be a bad shot to tank with a low power gun. But engines, engine ports, exhausts, that's where you can put some damaging shots.
Good work, Commander. You reduced that heavily armored tank.
One bad thing we did was face sideways to this tank while shooting. If they had been shooting at us, they would have had an equally weak spot on our tank to point at. So it can be at times, depending on the tank you happen to be in, a good idea to angle your tank relative to the gun. That can tend to deflect more shots. It provides a more angled surface. And it all depends on your armor. Big main battle tanks with super huge guns. Tank destroyers with massive caliber guns. It's not gonna matter too much sometimes, no matter which way you're facing. So this little part of the tutorial shows you how to shoot a moving target and keep spot of it. Kind of teaches you places where it might be easier to get to and hide from its fire, like behind buildings.
And keep still. It will be harder for enemies to detect you.
We can haul up this hill here and get behind cover of rocks. You're going to hear a term called gun depression. That's how low your gun can shoot. Right now I can shoot the top of the mid-top point of these far mountains. If I want to shoot lower, I'm going to have to proceed up over the crest of the hill until I can shoot down at the ground at lower glacis points or back into the engines of tanks or other vulnerable spots. What this does is allow my tank to remain as protected as possible from any enemy tank. If I come up over the hill, he can only see my turret. If he tries to take a shot, there's a good chance that it can deflect, especially if I'm moving around and not preventing a stationary target on him. Once he takes his shot, I can have enough time to get up here, put a shot in one of his weak spots, and possibly retreat back under cover before he can shoot again. I've kind of overextended myself on that particular shot. You might only need to come up this far before you can hit a weak spot and then retreat under cover. That's the advantage of faster firing guns. The slower guns tend to be the more powerful guns though and do lots of damage. What they call alpha damage, just right up front. Medium tank like this against a higher tier opponent might do beta damage.
Switch to sniper mode and take aim at.
So again, this kind of demonstrates
Since he is far away,
the
you
point.
have to lead him by aiming at the front of the tank or just ahead of it.
Now it doesn't tell you explicitly. I use a left trigger to aim, but as you see in the graphic over here, you hit the right trigger to zoom in even, the right thumbstick pressed down to zoom in even further, which is how my controller's set up. And that allows you to zoom. That'll help you immensely when you try to target weak points on tanks that are far away. Like here, I can still keep a shot on, in between tracks, lower glacis points, sides of turrets. I just need to lead my tank. The closer it comes to me, the less I have to lead it. When it's stationary, you can basically pick over any point you want to shoot. Otherwise, just lead a little, take a shot. You can see I hit him. Even though I was aiming at the front, I hit him a little bit towards the midpoint of the tank. And that'll be obvious to a lot of people. I mean, some people won't need information at all. But you can kind of keep an eye on their track, shoot. Shot his track. And tried to shoot him in his track. Well, we derailed his track, but it also blew him up. He's kind of a weak tank. Well, those are some things that you can do to improve your game in World of Tanks. So any kind of repeat would be angle your armor. Try to stay under cover from tanks. Make use of autopilot or cruise control. That can be your friend. It lets you drive around, just steering left and right without having to worry too much about backwards and forward motion, which can really kind of screw up your tank sometimes. Sometimes your controller will switch between going forward and reverse, if you try to make tight turns, and that can make you turn the wrong direction at times. So always being able to just know you're going forward and turning left and right can be handy. Anyway, we'll try to put some other techniques up here in another video. We'll see how this goes next time.